right, Nathan, how was this sermon an encouragement to you?
I guess, man, I struggled with the meaning of this passage so hard that finally when it just, something was like, okay, I feel like this is way better, I was able to go with it. And although I didn't have as much details in my notes, I felt like because I believed that to be closer and I was able to like think it through a little better, even if I didn't communicate that as easily as I wished. But
okay,
yeah.
Eric.
Christ taking on the lowest of human experiences in death and humiliation as the holy God was edifying to me.
I appreciated the just kind of challenge if these guys from Jabesh Gilead went out to do something for a king that had his flaws. How much more should we be loyal to our king?
Yeah, I was really challenged and encouraged by that, to honor our king in such a great way for who he is and what he's done for us. He's the King of Kings. He deserves the honor.
I really appreciated the reminder of Saul, even at his worst, like there were still people that he saved and that we're still grateful to him. So it was just a good reminder to me of I don't know, even the worst people can do some good.
So, yeah, I was going to say something similar where I was encouraged by the fact that while Saul is definitely not an admirable character, you, I think, rightly humanized him instead of just demonizing this guy. So we actually felt appropriately sad for his death. Man, this is just a really tragic scene. Where it's easy to just be like, Saul's terrible, he's dead, he's out of the way, David's coming, don't worry about it. But I think I was encouraged by the fact man, this is some sad stuff. And there's good news on the backside of that. So, what do you think you didn't do so well on?
Besides not saying my main point early, because I didn't.
You mean ever?
I did, but I know it was so late that I was just like, oh yeah, I didn't say this, and therefore they probably won't catch this. So,
What was it?
generally the idea was the end of disobedience is death. So that was kind of what the theme I was trying to go with. Kind of like the whole story of Saul, beginning was disobedience, the end being death.
Okay.
So that was kind of what I was trying to hold on there. So other than that, I just feel like because it was all last minute, I didn't get to focus on that right side, the bringing it to the people as well and easily, and I felt that. So.
Okay. Eric.
Yeah, I was lost
Yeah.
for a majority of the sermon. I didn't know what you were arguing. I think your points were Saul's death and Saul's humiliation. Is that correct?
Kinda, yeah. Yeah.
So I caught it early, but then didn't know where we were at throughout, and so, I was just lost.
Similar thing for me with the main point. I was struggling. I was thinking maybe it was, you'd said, we often go through tragedy and this passage answers the why and the what to do. So I was kind of thinking maybe it was in there somewhere, and I could find that, and so I was a little bit thrown off, I guess.
Yeah, well, I was encouraged with what you were talking about Jesus. I didn't really understand when you got to Jesus and how you were getting there.
Yeah.
Especially since you said something that I thought you were going to use as your gospel connection, and you were talking about God spoke of his death and his enemies. He's using his enemies for his purposes here. So there was something that you could have used there in your sermon to connect it to the gospel. Another time
Yeah, that-
spoke of
That was not in my notes, so.
Okay.
Just came to you on the fly.
And so I literally thought, oh, I gotta use that later, and never came back to it.
Yeah.
So I hear that.
Yeah.
I think this is already said. But this is something that I have a bad habit of too. Like
Mhm.
I think just like a routine of just saying like the title of your sermon and then the main point of your sermon instead of
Oh yeah.
just a backbone to everything. I think one of the things that kind of happened because like those two things weren't there was when you started to talk about like suicide.
Mm-hmm.
It started to like get kind of confusing. With,
Mhm.
like, how does this all fit
Mm-hmm.
together?
Which I could have typed that in more. Yeah.
So, yeah, a different spot at which your unfamiliarity with a shorter outline was when you started talking about like everyone has meaning.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't really clear while we were there. Like,
Oh, and I
everything
felt
great.
that.
And then you went like, our ministries have meaning, and I was like, what? I thought we were talking about suicide or something. So it was like, it kind of was like you're doing some wordplay on meaning stuff, but then we kind of got really far afield, and it was like,
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, it was one of those kind of places where what you said, the words you were using were good.
Yeah.
It's a good example of how, like, if you're not getting in there clean, then all the good things you say are going to not have nearly as much weight because we didn't know how we got there.
Okay. Thanks.
Eric.
Your pauses are really good at times, and then sometimes it just seems like you're not sure
Right.
what you're doing, like saying, not doing, but saying.
So.
Probably just try to tighten up in your own mind where you're going so that you can use the pauses
Yeah.
strategically.
And I was combating what I previously did when I did this kind of thing, which was like say the words like weirdly, like I think this it
Yep.
like I would do that. So I was focused on that, so I wasn't even thinking about pauses there. But yeah,
Million things going on.
Yeah. In that suicide section, and you also said something about like especially valuing Christians, and I was just thinking in my mind, I was like, we should love Christians in a special way, but in terms of human value, it's equal, and you probably weren't trying to suggest otherwise, but that's how it came across to me.
okay.
Yeah, just getting out on some of the things you were saying. I don't know if it was because of the shorter notes. There's just some points I was
Yeah.
disconnected on. Like you were talking about something about leaders using authority well.
Mm-hmm.
I was like,
And that might be partially too because of what I was preaching before, like my old sermon. I might have just kept that in, but yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
I think your tone, like, and I think this is because like a different style of preaching that you're at with the shorter outline.
Ooh, I didn't break it, I swear.
Just leave it there. Just don't screw with it.
You kind of like it was a pretty consistent pattern of you go up in tone, down in tone, and then up in tone. So it's kind of like a cyclical, like roller coaster.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I was just kind of like it caught my attention, and then I was just like watching you go up in tone and then go down in tone at times. So,
Yeah, because it's better than before, but you still don't sound like you.
Okay.
It's not nearly as exaggerated as it used to be, but you still don't sound like you.
Okay.
My thing is, so this is, we've been touching on it, so like Wes is thinking about getting in and out, some of the tone stuff, some of like make sure that stuff gets in there. If you're going to go with shorter notes, which you should try again,
I want to, yeah.
so the things that you need to write down clearly are intro, transitions, and the close. Like you flub the close hard
Okay.
because like you weren't clear in your own head about what you wanted to say, and you were doing this like reversal thing which is tricky to pull off.
Mm.
So you gotta have it real clear in your mind, have it simple, and have it written down. That way, if you get lost, you can like actually just like read that part. But especially work on memorizing the close.
Gotcha.
So you're looking at us as you're saying it, and you're not looking down like, wait, what's going on?
Only did it a few times.
Yeah, so as you go back to it, those are the things that you write out and spend. So it might mean you go from 2.5 pages to 3 or 3.5 pages, but those are the key things for you to get used to this stuff to write it down. What do
Okay.
you think you made progress on?
Well, I didn't have that weird word thing that I did the last few times. I did this multiple times, and that was like not just the last time I did it here, but somewhere else. And I was just like, gosh. So I guess in that aspect, I fixed one thing to see other places need to be fixed. But yeah, I mean,
Okay.
it wasn't super clear because I omitted some things. But I think, I don't know, I felt a little bit better about it by the end of it than I did before I was going into it.
There you go. Eric.
So, with the combination of you and Derek Bukema smiling, it was a powerful day at the Chicago course.
Did I smile a lot?
Just, yeah.
Wow, okay.
Like, you just smiled a lot, and it was nice. It was nice. Like that.
I don't know if I can smile all preaching then.
Yeah, I'm not.
You smile?
I saw.
It's usually when you're like making a point to stab people, that's when you're smiling.
If I'm smiling, you're about to get it.
I've noticed that.
As you can tell, I'm not the best at gospel connections, but I thought yours was good. I like the just the clear contrast between Saul and Christ, and one's disobedience led to death, one's obedience led to death. And, yeah, I just it was a good connection. So, and then you're called to like honor Christ because he rose, you know, and.
I thought you used the context well in setting up the story and what was going on with Saul, the situation, and not spending too much time and going away from that stuff, but even bringing in also like this was already spoken of by God, and this is now it's coming out, and so use context well.
Similarly, I thought like your historical context and how you used it, and like you brought us like a little bit further out from the text. Like this isn't the first time that like the kings would die like this because of the disobedience. And then like just like the way you tugged that line out, I thought was very useful and helpful to like understand how we should understand this text.
Yeah, so, well, it could have been, you kind of got lost there in the middle of it, but you at least made it an attempt at doing a run on Kings.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was supposed to name a few and do some things,
you
but
did David, and then you just said King.
I was supposed to go all the way to Zedekiah.
Yeah.
There's like one other person in between, but
From D to Z. But you brought up David on this run, and you were definitely headed in the right direction. As that was doing that whole kind of like ratcheting of the tension. So you weren't just like Saul's bad, Jesus is good. So you kind of let us down. So whatever was there was a good start at like trying to demonstrate this back to the kind of historical context thing that Theo was bringing it up to. Like we had to sit in it for a minute and think about the story from the Israelite perspective for a minute before we were just like, oh, Jesus is great. Thanks for Jesus.
gotcha.
Yeah. So, even though I was lost, I still took a text that it's like, honestly, who really cares about this?
Right.
And preached it. And I was, it was a useful time for me. So I think that like, being able to do that with a text like this is something that you did well.
I thought your intro was good, and then at the end you did make a tie back to what you started out with, and so it kind of, I felt like you weren't completely losing us by the time we got to the end.
Thanks.
You said our story ends a lot better than theirs as Christians.
Well, there were some comments about the suicide thing. I thought you did good in wanting to challenge it because it's obviously a theological obstacle here, and so something to challenge it. And I thought it flowed well with what you're talking about, like what Saul, even though he was this messed up king, his life still had worth. And so I thought it flowed well when you brought it up.
Okay. Trying to make it flow all the way through.
I think this has already been said. I think I appreciated how like you pushed for like the harder gospel connect, but one that would be like a little bit more like impactful, and just like not just Jesus is like better than Saul, but Jesus like relives Saul's life in an ironic way. And it ends better. It was like it's like hard to do that, really, but I did appreciate like you like trying to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you did some like fun stuff with the text that made it more interesting, because it can just be kind of like this, what the heck, or like this seems boring. But like we begin at the end, like you said there at the top, and then where you pointed out, like you had some pretty good storytelling through the first section in particular. Then like the idea that this was a shame, like on Saul and his sons, but especially their God. It was like, oh yeah, just pointing that stuff out. And then you had a really great transition. You didn't name your second homiletical point, but that whole thing of like, it seems bad, and it's about to get a whole lot worse. So you're like, oh wow, okay, I want to listen to this. So it was a very natural progression from something that was clearly like, that is not cool, to, oh boy, what is the worst thing that could happen to that? So you set it up well. Keep it up!